We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
It is way too early in the show for a facepalm already. Not that I have an issue with Latin music, of course, because I don't. I actually really like to listen to it when I cook, because I heat things up in the kitchen, but we're not quite there yet. All right, welcome to Granite State Live on this beautiful, stormy, soupy, man, if you've been outside in the past, hour or so, it is like walking into a sauna out there. It is just nasty and humid, and man, it feels like South Florida out there. So maybe, I guess, our bump music here was actually appropriate. Not bad. The first day of July, 2025. Great to have you along on this Tuesday evening. I am your host, Keith Hanson, the unapologetic contrarian conservative, never apologizing for my Christian faith, never, ever apologizing for, being just the outspoken conservative that just pisses people off. Suck it up, buttercups, because we are just getting started. Got a great show coming up for you tonight. I don't know, at some point here, my co-host, Julian, just walked out of the studio. If that was a protest, or did he have something that didn't agree with him? I mean, what's going on here? Oh, he's going for another Yingling. Oh, I get it. Okay, Julian's going to be coming back in here in just a second. We've got a lot of stuff. Oh, look at the... Hey, Julian, come on, get in here. Do your introduction. What the hell is this? You're on vacation already.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm
Make it happen.
Back in the chair, guys. Host of the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast, ready to piss some people off today. It's just had a bad reaction to my medication.
Oh, okay. Well, you're all right? I mean, you don't have to call you an ambulance, right?
No.
Okay. All right. Got a great show coming up for you tonight. We're going to be talking budget here in just a little bit, plus some interesting breaking news today that, unfortunately, we're just not in a position to really get into right now. But we are going to be spending some time on this next week and the week after. Of course, New Hampshire Supreme Court, the Conval ruling coming out today. New Hampshire Supreme Court ruling that education funding is inadequate, but won't order the state to pay it. This is going to be a hot-button topic, and I'm going to tell you, coming up next week, we're going to have some people on the show that I think are just about fed up with education funding in this state. Of course, 85% approximately of your tax dollars go to support your public schools. And of course now, $7,300 is the per pupil adequacy grant. And that's not enough money, according to people like Andrew Valinsky, who of course, want to have an income tax and a sales tax and a mileage tax in the state, so that we can pump up the per pupil rate for $50,000, $60,000, of course, making sure that we're paying the leftist teachers in the state to indoctrinate your children into transgenderism and DEI and everything else like that. What's amazing, though, is that the $7,300 per pupil adequacy grant is right around the same price that, wait for it, private schools, classical schools, and Christian academies are actually charging. Interesting how these organizations can cut out all the bullshit, they can cut out all the fluff, and they can do a really, really good job of educating kids for right around $8,000 a year. But your public school systems can't do it. Here's what I want you to do when you're driving through the beautiful state of New Hampshire. Look at the police departments, look at the fire departments, and then look at the schools. You will see police departments that are operating out of ramshackled garages. Oftentimes, the basement or the back corner of the fire department. But yet, what is the multi-million-dollar shining beacon on the hill? Your public indoctrination center. You got it. So we are going to have a lot of conversations about this because I'm telling you right now, people are pissed off. And if you're actually ready to put your money where your mouth is, no pun intended, well, I think you're going to like what's going to be coming up next week because we're going to be talking specifically about how you can push back. And I'll tell you, this is going to ignite a movement in this state. At least I hope it does. Unlike so many other things that should ignite movements but don't adequately motivate people to get out of their Barkle loungers and actually make a change. So hopefully this lights a fire under your ass and you decide to get out and do something. So we're going to be joined here in just a couple of minutes by New Hampshire State Representative Republican representing Merrimack 3, Brian Morse. He's going to be joining us in, again, just a couple of minutes here. And then we're going to move on to a couple of other topics here that I think are going to be pretty interesting. Number one, the big beautiful bill and the U.S. economy heading towards a very uncomfortable summer. As a matter of fact, today, headline from the Financial Times, U.S. dollar suffers worst start to year since 1973. Are we in the middle of an economic slump? Well, there's some people certainly that say that is the case. Are we on our way to a recession? Well, of course, isn't that what Republicans are always accused of doing? Driving the economy. It's going to be a recession. It's going to be World War III. Blah, 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 blah. There's going to be, it's going to be pandemonium and chaos. And yeah, okay. So we'll have that conversation with Gary Galls. He's a professor of economics at Pepperdine University and an adjunct scholar at the Von Mises Institute. Von Mises Institute, of course, a very, very good friend of the program. Coming up in the third segment, that'll be at the 8 o'clock hour, going to be chatting with Mandy Gunasakara. We're going to be talking about the deep state striking back. Traitors and saboteurs working in the Trump administration. Of course, we'll get into it about what's his face there? Oh, who's the freaking drug addict?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. There we go. Hey, you know what? I hate to be the one person in the room to say I told you so, but remember back in January when I said this whole bromance between Trump and Musk wasn't going to end well? Once again, kids, I'm right. And even when I'm wrong, I'm still right. Then coming up in the fourth segment, boy, I'll tell you, Kelly Ayotte's campaign slogan, "Don't mass up New Hampshire." Well, I think that's exactly what's happening down there in New York City. Have you happened to see this here? Zoran Mamdani. Okay, he's the avowed socialist who is now positioning himself to be mayor of New York City. They're going to have a socialist mayor. Hey,
he wants state-owned grocery stores or city-owned grocery stores where they take the profits and and they put it into a grocery store because, when government creates an option, it doesn't always immediately seek to start pushing out the private sector. As a matter of fact, if you pay attention to exactly what he was talking about in his video, he talked about how they're going to create their state-owned grocery stores, and then immediately was like, we're going to go through the private sector and we're going to hit them hard and force them to pay for it. And I'm like, and there it goes.
Yeah.
Like always, Soviet solutions will get you Soviet problems right there.
Well, hey, the problem with socialism is that there haven't been enough smart people to get it right. Just give it one more chance, just one more chance, and we'll get it right. Ain't that right, Andrew Volinsky? Ain't that right, Ray Buckley? Yep, we just got to give you one more opportunity, and maybe you'll pull your heads out of your cravens and actually get it right this time. No, I don't have any faith in that. To be honest with you, I don't have faith in much in politics anymore. I don't have faith in the Republican Party to actually take the win and carry it forward.
Yep.
And to be honest, I don't really have a lot of faith in the Democrat Party either right now because these people could screw up a cup of coffee. Man, I thought the people that worked at Dunkin' Donuts were incompetent. Holy crap. Now you got the Democrat Party that still can't recover from what happened. This is the opportunity for Republicans to actually get work done, but never ever underestimating the ability of the Republican Party to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I don't have a lot of faith. I don't know. Maybe our first guest will restore my faith and my hope, at least in the New Hampshire legislature, but I don't know. That's a pretty tough order. Republican State Representative representing Merrimack District 3, Brian Morse, joining us in studio. Brian, great to have you.
Great to be here.
I hope you're okay after that intro, because I just, every single week that goes by, I just get more and more. I used to be amused, and now I'm just disgusted. And now, as far as I'm concerned, they all need to be crucified. So, I don't know. Change my mind on this. What's going on here with, especially with the budget?
There is a lot of good stuff in the budget, and there's also some bad things. Preferably, I got some really good stuff that was more or less kind of hidden until recently.
Okay. I do want to say one thing. Mm-hmm. Congratulations for actually getting something right. Not you, but I mean just in general, the Republican Party in the state of New Hampshire. Thank you for doing away with the vehicle inspections. I think that is a fantastic move. I found it very amusing that Donald Bolduc wrote an op-ed in the NH Journal excoriating that decision and saying that, I mean, this is a public safety issue. It's the stupidest argument that I've ever heard. But thank you for actually getting it right. It's nice to see that the auto dealers mafia here in New Hampshire at least has had a little bit of wind taken out of their sails. They're not going to be taking advantage of and gouging people for repairs that are unnecessary or not needed in the interest of public safety.
You're talking about like a simple rust hole in the bumper and they fail your inspection for that?
Oh, I'm talking about telling somebody, who has 27% left on their brake pads that they need calipers and rotors and a full brake job. That kind of, that's not, Grapponi would never do that. And I'm mentioning names for a reason. So
what's kind of funny about that whole thing is when I originally started campaigning for office, I reached out to the chairman of transportation and I asked him, what can we do to get rid of the inspections? And I was told there was too much state or federal funding that was coming in for it, so they weren't going to do it, and it was just going to be a waste. Lo and behold, they did it anyways.
Well, that's a load of horseshit, because what would it be, 15 or 17 states that actually require? The vast majority, the overwhelming majority of states do not require vehicle inspections.
And then we get the people that say that we're going to lose like $3 million in federal funding, but no state in the U.S. has lost that funding for getting rid of the inspections.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, it's fear mongering.
Yeah,
it's fear mongering. You see that all the time. You see that with gun bills. Oh, the streets. The streets are going to run red if we do this. Open carry and permitless carry. Oh my God, it's going to be the Wild West. And meanwhile, we have some of the safest streets. I mean, except for Manchester, but we have some of the safest streets in the country.
Yep.
So it's fear mongering, and that's what, I mean, no offense, that's what politicians are really, really good at. So it's good to see that you guys did that, actually. What else is in the bill here that is good, that is actually a win for the people of the state?
So my absolute favorite, I guess you can say little hidden gem, a full prohibition on DEI-related contract provisions. So,
excellent.
I love that.
In layman's term, if any school or college is to push DEI or have programs that offer DEI provisions, then they would immediately lose funding until they get rid of them.
Good.
Suck it, NEA.
It is about time we did something to fight back.
Good. It's about time. Yeah, I appreciate that, because schools should be, all these adulting things, right? How many kids can balance a checkbook? I guess not that, anybody even uses a checkbook today, but how many people could reconcile, this is how much money I'm getting in, this is, exactly, zero.
But they know all the genders.
How many are there now? There are 50?
No, there's like 150 or something like that. It's ridiculous. I've had testimonies straight from students coming out of Laconia, coming out of Concord, who first day of school they get there and they get a piece of paper and it has you circle what your identity pronouns are.
Yeah.
Whether you're going to be he, she, z, zer, zip, zat, whatever. It's they focus more on that than they do actually teaching mathematics. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous.
I'm a ninja.
And I identify as a couch potato.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I mean, it kind of makes. What are the state numbers in terms of testing when you compare those to the rest of the countries? How are the students of this state stacking up when it comes to reading and writing and arithmetic? How many of these kids could identify, the whole Israel situation? How many people could find Israel on a map?
Well, considering our proficiency scores are hovering around 50% for national, that kind of goes to say that our schools are failing our kids. I mean, with all the money that we spend nationwide on schooling, and we're sitting at 50% proficiency scores on average, that's ridiculous.
What's more insane is that
Wait till
we're
you hear about
actually
mine.
at the. What's crazy is we're actually at the top of that list of all 50 states. Is that you have Massachusetts at number 1, and New Hampshire's like number 2, number 3, depending on the different lists you look at. I'm like, really? With our proficiency scores this bad, it around 50%, you're telling me that we're at the top? That is sad. That is horrible for the state of the country. And we wonder why the vast majority of people in the country can't qualify for military service, which both you and I served. So, and we had a great conversation about that this weekend. It's amazing to me how stupid the average person is. And I just talked about in my podcast earlier today with my guest that the vast majority of people, when you walk up to them on the street and you ask them a question, who are the last 3 presidents? Who's your state representative? Who's your federal representative? Who's your governor? The vast majority of people can't tell you. Like, hell, it can't tell you basic history, can't tell you basic governance, civics, can't tell you basic math problems. They have no idea what it is. Just we're failing our republic.
Well, you watch
$21,000 a kid.
These man on the street videos, and I think that they're and these people laugh. It's funny, from whom did America gain independence? And France, they don't know. When was the Declaration of Independence signed? They don't know. Mm-hmm. It's not funny. It's disgusting. Yep. It's shameful, and it's almost. I'm going to go way out here on the conspiracy theory limb. It's almost like it's orchestrated demise because, I don't know, take a page from history. The Roman Empire, in order to gain the ground that it did, made sure that the ruling class spoke a different language. We keep people in the dark. It's the mushroom management. Feed them a load of shit, keep them in the dark, and then just use them for whatever you possibly can. So if we have stupid kids that are dependent on blue labor and blue collar, I'm not even talking like blue collar jobs because those are honorable when we're talking about mechanics, HVAC, electricians, carpenters. All that. I'm talking about just general, like I work at McDonald's, I work at Dunkin' Donuts, labor like that. You're not even qualified to do that. You can be a barista. Congratulations. Outside of that, you're going to get replaced by AI. So it's almost like it's orchestrated demise.
Yep.
You're not wrong there. What's actually kind of funny is I spoke with one of the members of my school board the other day, specifically about our proficiency scores, because my district, guess what it is? Guess what our proficiency scores are for $21,000 to $25,000 a kid?
You're Franklin, Northfield, or
Franklin.
what? Just Franklin?
Yep.
45%?
I would say you're probably in the lower 30s.
14.
Whoa!
Holy
14.
shit.
Yeah. And you know what I was told the way to fix that?
More money.
Oh, that's one. More money.
Okay.
But dumb down the test scores. Dumb down the tests.
So
that students can pass.
Yeah, so not...
14,
because that's how they get funded.
14%?
Oh, yeah.
How much are they paying these teachers?
Around $44,000, $45,000, give or take.
Fire them. Fire them.
We need to reallocate funding. So the problem with Franklin is that we spent $600,000 on DEI specialists, and they say it's grant funded, right?
Yeah.
But you're talking to school. Let's say there's like 700 and something kids in our school, all at around $21,000 a piece. I think our school, if I can remember right, I think it was around $10 million is what we're getting from the state, and we're spending $18 million. I have the numbers at home. I can get you guys more information on that one.
That's insane.
Disgusting.
That's insane. 14%.
Yep. And the superintendent said they're paying $6,000 for out of state curriculums, but yet a wife of a school board member gets $100,000 a year. She's a curriculum specialist.
For those who didn't catch that their solution is not to increase proficiency. Their solution is to dumb down the testing so more kids graduate and more kids get high scores on the testing, which doesn't equate to efficiency, but but it does equate to making them look better when they're being reviewed, so they can get more funding.
Look at what a great job we're doing.
Yeah, if you look at how schools are funded these days, it's off graduation rates and it's off how many kids they send to college. So you're giving the impression to the universities these kids graduate from that they get high test scores and that they're proficient in what they're studying, and then they go to college and they're going to have to take remedial courses unless the university does the same thing. And guess what? We have multiple reports coming from universities across the country telling us that they're dumbing down testing, and the average person, the average, I don't know, 500 freaking pronouns there are out there that go into these schools. They can tell you every pronoun under the sun and every DEI initiative. They hate America. They don't know basic history, basic civics, math, reading, science. They're stupid. They're stupid. They're illiterate, and they have to take remedial courses just to even be in Chemistry 101.
But I'd be willing to bet you there's teachers out there that want to teach them how to put on a condom and give a same-sex partner a hand job, because that's the kind of thing that's important in schools today. That's what you have to know. You have to understand that, we can't be hate mongers. We have to understand. And this is the school porn. This is the school porn bill that we were going to be talking about.
But this is how you create communists too.
Yeah. But this is, here I was furrowing my brow a moment ago because I was thinking about, where have I seen this movie before?
Idiocracy?
And no, I don't mean an actual movie. I'm talking about this plot, this concept. And of course, I know the answer to this. This is, if you remember the restorative justice programs, 2012, 2013, 2014. So major cities with Democrat progressive leadership, and I use that term very loosely, were rolling out these restorative justice programs. And so there was, and it was a two-part initiative. Number one, we're going to roll out these fuzzy pink bunny initiatives. Number two, we're now going to stop reporting to police departments petty crimes. Things like simple assaults, simple batteries, vandalism, possession of marijuana, different things like that. So, of course, to anybody running the numbers, we're looking at this and saying, wow, look at this. The numbers of criminal instances are going down. It must be because of the efficacy of this progressive restorative justice program. And in fact, it's not. The program is a failure, but in addition to the program being a failure, it's lying through statistics. How is this any different?
It's not. It's the same thing.
It's amazing. I can figure it out. Why the hell can't other people? Is it that hard?
For some.
Tell us about House Bill 324, the school porn bill.
So this one was actually, let's see, try to figure out the best way to explain it here, because it's going to take some people, take them aback a little bit when they hear it.
Okay, listen, most of our audience don't candy coat it because,
All right. So NEA New Hampshire and
they don't need the calories.
Teachers unions and everyone, they opposed this bill by saying it was nothing but a book banning bill, right? A book banning bill, like we're going back to Nazi ages and just stripping people of their books and then crucifying them, etc. No, that's not what this is. This bill adds due process. So if parents or anyone really doesn't like a specific piece of material that's in a school library or being taught in a school, then they have a due process to be able to get that removed and make it public. Right, so in something like 20, 25 different schools so far, we have found porn in schools. And I can show you some pictures because I still have them from when we were in committee. Male-on-male oral sex, female-on-male, female-on-female, adult and child. Yeah, wrap your head around that one.
Right. So when I had mentioned earlier about but there are teachers out there that would want to teach your kids how to put on a condom and give a same-sex partner a hand job, I'm not being facetious, and I'm not just being sarcastic for the sake of shock value on a podcast. We're talking about, and I mean literally and figuratively, they're graphic novels, they're cartoon books, they're like comic books, and these comic books and these cartoon books are. I don't know if we can zoom in on this or not. Juan, can you do that?
I got more too.
Okay, can we zoom in on that?
I don't know how well you're going to be.
Yeah, I don't know how I can see it.
That's a boy giving another boy oral sex. That's someone slitting their wrists.
Yeah,
it's These are graphic novels. That's how they're
So
getting away with
these are the graphic novels that are teaching your children to be tolerant, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with performing fellatio on a same-sex partner. And this is what your children are being paid to. Oh, this is lovely.
Yeah, it's another one.
Yeah. So pretty. I mean, it's a graphic novel, and it is definitely graphic.
I took those when we were in education committee because I am on education administration and policy.
But this is what progressives think is appropriate to expose your children to. And and again, I have asked this question many, many times. 833-603-8255. If you support this, I would like you to call into the program and convince me why, number one, that grade school children need to be taught this filth. The first thing before you get into that is, I want to know, what is your obsession with children and sex? Because that's the one thing I've noticed with Democrats. They love mixing children and sex. It's almost as if there's an obsession about this.
I mean, look at what they're doing across the country here, where they're trying to say that pedophiles are minor attracted person maps or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
So yeah, we got to fight back. We can't let this stuff happen. That's the whole reason I got involved with politics. Because to be honest, I never wanted to be in this position. It's a lot of work. I'm working full time. Right now, I guess I'm working around 60, 70 hours a week, with this being my second full-time job. It is a lot, but it's worth it. I mean, I got 2 kids at home, 10 and 7. They're both in a charter school because, well, when they were in public school, they were bringing home books about narwhals identifying as unicorns. And I know that's, nothing crazy, right? But look at the ideology as where it's coming from. You're going to identify as something that you are not.
Brian, we've only got literally about 45 seconds left here, but I do want to ask you, how much of this budget is going to be targeted if, God forbid, and I'm forecasting this now, that the Republican Party is going to wind up losing. They're going to get shellacked in 2018. And then there's a whole bunch of things. I'm sorry, did I say two? Yeah, because that's what's on the brain, right? 2018. That's exactly what happened, courtesy of Wayne McDonald and his cabal of losers. But that being said, in 2026, how many of these budgetary items and how many bills that are being passed right now are going to be directly targeted for reversal if we do have a Democrat-led administration?
To be honest, I would say pretty much all of them. Everything that we're trying to accomplish to be able to fix our schools and set our kids up for success is going to be undermined and destroyed. Yep. Right? They're going to be pushing DEI and CRT. They're going to be doing things that we can't even imagine.
Well, lots of taxes and sexualizing your children, because those are the things that just put little warm fuzzies in the bottomless black souls of Democrats. All right. New Hampshire State Representative Republican Brian Morse, Merrimack number 3. I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program. I want to get you back on, too. I mean, half an hour wasn't enough time to really dive into this, but wanted to tease it a little bit. So we'll get you back on again. All right, going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Gary Gallus from the Pepperdine University, adjunct scholar at Ludwig von Mises Institute. Going to be talking about that big, beautiful bill. Much more coming up right after this. Don't go away.
United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Acciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Welcome back to Granite State Live. Great to have you along on this Tuesday evening, the first day of July 2025. Man, what a start. It is summer out there. It is 85 degrees and pretty damn humid. Things heating up in Washington, D.C. as well, too. So, this big, beautiful bill here. Well, 4 hours ago, the story dropped on the Financial Times. U.S. dollar suffering worst start to year since 1973. U.S. dollar headed for its worst first half of the year since 1973 as Donald Trump's trade and economic policies prompt global investors to rethink their exposure to the world's dominant currency. Now, updates on the big, beautiful bill. The Senate passing President Trump's signature policy today, with Vice President J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote after 3 Republicans broke ranks and joined Democrats in opposing it. Now, Trump and his allies have insisted that the legislation would be a boon for seniors and the middle class. Well, whether or not that's the case, that remains to be seen. Of course, both sides of the aisle now digging in their heels, arguing for what they feel is either going to be a good bill or a bad bill. So, to get some perspective on this, we've invited the professor of economics at Pepperdine University and the adjunct scholar at the Ludwig von Mises Institute, great organization, and a friend of the programs, Gary Gals, joining us on the video line. Gary, thanks so much for jumping on. Who do we believe in this? Is this the big, beautiful bill, or is this the big, scary nightmare that is going to just wreak financial havoc on people for generations to come? All right, got a little audio. Can't hear you, Gary. Can't hear you. Gary, he can't hear you, Gary.
Uh-oh.
All right. So we're going to work on getting Gary connected here. One of the big things here is cuts to Medicaid. And also some I'm going to put it colloquially here, the welfare to work programs, which I got to be honest with you, I think especially when it comes to Medicaid cuts, Medicare cuts, and then not to seem like a heartless, insensitive conservative, but I mean, again, these things cost money. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that there should be an examination as to where we can cut costs, specifically as it relates to people who may be able to provide for themselves or at least to carry some of the financial burden without having the government have to stroke the check for the entirety of the pot.
Well, I think where what is going to end up happening is going into the midterm elections, we're going to end up getting hit hard because this is the Democrats, bread and butter right here is the typical, you're going to roll grandma off the hill, cuts Social Security, cuts the Medicare, cuts the Medicaid, stuff like that. And I don't think when Republicans made these cuts that they marketed or explained why they're making the cuts, how they're making the cuts, and whether it's going to result in a cut in services for the average person who's receiving Medicare, Medicaid, so on and so forth, and what demographics aren't going to be receiving it. Because I think that's where you end up getting the explanation that the average person might be like, oh, well, I see where they're coming from with this. But, for the people who receive these programs, they're never going to want to hear that there's cuts. And that's going to be the thing that we're going to see constantly being fed throughout the next election cycle. And I've often said it that the GOP is dismal when it comes to explaining the bills, especially highly contentious bills, and what we're planning on doing and why we're planning on doing it, and marketing those solutions to the average person who doesn't have the time to spend a couple hours a day watching Newsmax, Fox News, tuning into podcasts, so on and so forth.
Well, I think that's a big problem is people first of all, you're right that there's a messaging issue that comes out of the Republican Party. Listen, and to any Republicans that are listening here, it's a simple process. If you want somebody to buy something, you have to give them a sales pitch. Mm-hmm. And when you're looking at something like this, I think this is an investment in your future. This bill is an investment in a future because you're looking for this to provide a better way of life, not a worse way of life, not increased costs, not a recession, not economic uncertainty. So if this is something that you are absolutely convinced is actually for the best for the American people, then you have to sell it on them or do what any investment advisor would. Give a prospectus, give them that public offering announcement so that way they can read it, they can see it, they understand the economics behind it. And I'm hoping that Gary Galls is back because if he is, then he can add on to that.
All right.
He is not. We see your lips moving, but we don't hear anything. So it's we're going to work on getting the audio. We do apologize for that. There's something in the wires.
But see, this is where the contention arises in D.C. is you have like Representative Thomas Massey and Rand Paul, who have been really sticklers on fiscal responsibility, which Republicans are supposed to, on paper, stand for as limited government and fiscal responsibility. Mind you, this bill doesn't bring the limited government or fiscal responsibility that we're expecting to see, which brings up why you have so much animosity between Trump and Elon Musk is the Doge cuts were supposed to be in the bill and were supposed to be a large cut to the bureaucratic infrastructure of DC and how things work behind closed doors that the average person doesn't get to see. And we saw a lot get exposed, but a lot of that stuff still found its way back into the bill. So now we're passing a bill that we were told was going to do one thing, and a lot of the stuff that came out of the House had a lot of good things in it, but then when it went to the Senate, like always, the Club of 100 cuts everything good out of the bill, and this goes to something I've criticized Republicans for continuously, which is coming to the table with a bill that you think the Democrats will jump on board with, and then letting them negotiate you backwards from that point, rather than coming to the table with everything that that you want, which is exactly what the Democrats do. They don't come to the table with, hey, here's where we can compromise. They come to the table with, here's 100% of the stuff that we want. Now you can try to work us back from our position. We come with, here's 50% of the stuff that we want, and we allow them to work us back, which is why progressivism still progresses forward no matter what the hell we do and who we send to DC.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just pulling this up here. It's been a while since I've actually been on the debt clock here, but we're going to pull this up and just see where we happen to stand. So, U.S. national debt right now is standing at 30. The last time I checked this shows you how long it's been. It's been about three and a half years since I actually checked this, and it was right around 30 trillion. We're now standing at $37 trillion. That's the national debt.
Shit.
Now, one of the things, too, I mean, you can go to Fox News, MSNBC, whatever the case may be. If you really want to get a better understanding of things, I prefer to go to international sources, because I think the international sources, they're far more objective in their reporting.
Well,
so
it's not their country.
What we're seeing with, and of course, when you're looking at global economists,
yeah.
Now, this is the concern. Global economists have always pegged, I mean, at least in the documents that I've read, $30 trillion is right around the point, or the mark, where people start to lose, and when I say people, I'm talking about nations. They start to lose their faith in America's money, in the strength of our economy. And you have to remember that we used to have a gold standard.
Yep.
Now our gold standard is gone. It's a fiat currency. It's, what gives our money its value, the full faith and credit of the federal government. And so just as we used to have a gold standard that would give, we had physical gold reserves that would give our currency value. And similarly, now you have other nations that have a U.S. dollar standard. Mm-hmm. So the U.S. dollar standard, instead of having gold on reserve, these nations have U.S. dollars on reserve. Oftentimes they're pegged, sometimes they are not pegged to the U.S. dollar, but the value of their currency and their economy is directly tied to the value of the American dollar. And $30 trillion is where a lot of economists in the world, not American-based, but foreign-based economists, started to say our faith in the American economy is really starting to waver. We are now at $37 trillion, and by estimates, that the big beautiful bill would add an approximate $3.2 trillion to that debt pile. Now that's over the course of a decade. We're now at, or with this, adding that to the pile, would be $40 trillion in debt.
And here's the problem, is you devalue the dollar, and that destroys our ability to trade with the rest of the world, our ability to be the reserve currency. And you already see BRICS in China specifically maliciously trying to move the rest of the world off the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, which is absolutely going to collapse our economy if we are no longer the reserve currency of the world. And not just the fact that we are the reserve currency of the world, but also our dollar is based no longer on the gold standard, but on the United States economic position worldwide. Mm-hmm. And if that collapses, we're screwed. And you can't have continuous cuts to taxes, spending all that, or cuts to taxes and stuff, and spend twice as much as you always do.
Well, maybe I am a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, fear mongering, right-wing conservative, or maybe I'm right. I don't know. Gary Gallus, are you back? There he is.
I got you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. Welcome to the party. A little bit late, but that's okay. So
you can hear me now.
We can hear you.
I'm just trying to call you for the umpteenth time.
All right.
Okay?
Well, you're on. So, am I off my rocker here, or is this something that is legitimately something to be concerned about?
Well, this is massive stuff to be concerned about. It's true that when you have unfunded liabilities, and I would mention that if you look at the national debt, you're looking at way too low a number. The number doesn't include the unfunded liabilities in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and over 100 other trust funds that are much smaller. But those by themselves are way more, maybe double, triple the size of the official. It's worse than it looks.
So, according to the U.S. debt clock, the unfunded debt, this adds an extra, what is it, $104 billion onto. No, actually, I'm sorry, $1 trillion. That's the total would be about $104 trillion.
And we don't have the population growth to sustain it.
Well, and when you look at the bill, even this one, it is another example of somebody trying to create a rule, the Congressional Budget Office, to try and keep politicians under control. The problem is that what happens is the politicians then game the system. It's like when they're talking about the current budget, that way of using the baseline, they're looking at what we're spending today in the last year of the previous bill, and then extending it like it wouldn't have happened otherwise. And so in that CBO stuff, they estimate this will lower the long-term deficit by about $500 billion, when in fact it'll raise it compared to what we're spending now by almost $4 trillion. That's
so
the way that.
What's a worst case scenario here with this? I mean, I don't want to be the doom and gloom person here. Well, actually, yeah, I do, because it makes for really interesting media. But I mean, what is the? Because my concern is exactly what I think Julian was just talking about, which is now that there's another nation that comes out and says, hey, I mean, I think there was some flirting with this, with the euro. There's speculation that that's what the first Gulf War was, when you had American troops that were invading Saddam Hussein's palaces and finding pallets and pallets and pallets of cash. It was an attempt to influence OPEC to drop the American dollar and start settling petroleum transactions through OPEC with the euro, not with the U.S. dollar, which would have a necessary collapsing effect on our stock and bond markets and our currency markets eventually.
It certainly gives us fewer degrees of freedom to be wasteful at that point, because people don't trust us. It's easier to take advantage of people when they trust you than when you don't. And we're telling them we're not reliable. We tell them one thing and then we say another thing and we change it and we back off. And the fact is, it's that reliability in the absence of, say, a gold standard, as you were mentioning. That is the reason the U.S. has been the world currency. I mean, it could have been the Swiss franc. They have a better record, but they were too small in international trade to count. So that's why they aren't in the euro. They were too small to do it. But, can you trust us? I'd say no.
So I want to go off the reservation here for a second, and I want to ask your opinion on gold, because, I know a lot of people that have been investing heavily in gold, precious metals, anything that has an intrinsic value, but gold specifically. And, when you look at what the value of gold is today versus the rate of inflation, it has not paced. Is gold an undervalued asset right now, or would you expect that this is something that we would start to see experiencing a surge in value over the next couple of years, especially in light of this bill?
Well, it's a historically reliable source of value, primarily because, it has other uses, and in economics language, it has a very inelastic supply. It is hard to make more gold very fast. So if there's inflation, what happens is people are willing to pay more of those inflated dollars, which means gold prices rise. So there's simply a protection against government ripping you off. Land is much the same, right? There's a given amount of land. If there's inflation, people pay more dollars for the land. It's a way of protecting yourself against that.
I've long said that the reason why we find ourselves in this position is because politicians in D.C. are beholden to their next reelection, and nobody wants to be the one who has to go to their electorate and explain to them that, look, we got hard days ahead of us, and we're going to have to make the cuts today in order to have long-term prosperity for you and your children and your grandchildren, so on and so forth, later on. And because that just doesn't sell for reelection. The reality is that we're in this position where election cycle after election cycle, each group of politicians go to D.C. and each Congress find themselves basically in a position where they, in order to get reelected, they have to lie to us.
There it is. Okay.
To give people something and then try and dare the other guys to take it away. We'll give you something for free. When it comes out to pay something, I will make you the bad guy. I'll demonize you as the problem, not the problem that what we did in the first place.
Yep. Andrew Wilkow says it all the time. When free ice cream is the standard for who wins an election, whoever takes the free ice cream away is the bad guy. And
it's going to be a problem as long as people are willing to say, I want more for me if it comes out of their pocket. As long as that's what we will vote for, we're going to continue to have this problem, right? It takes a moral argument to say, look, this isn't right to rip off later generations the way we're doing it, right? We're not there, that's for sure.
I would just caution the average American, understand that you are putting your children and your grandchildren and great-grandchildren in economic slavery in order to maintain the lifestyle that you hold so dear presently.
I would push back on though, Julian, and here's why. Because the average person doesn't need the government to put them in economic slavery.
Agreed.
They're doing a great job of that themselves. We're looking at this right now. We've got $1 trillion $1.3 trillion in credit card debt. You've got people out there. I was in a supermarket today, and I was actually in Franklin. You would appreciate this. I was at a supermarket in Franklin, and there's this guy who's walking away from a looked like probably a year or two old Mercedes C300, and he's walking away from the car and he's looking at it, and I'm like, tell me you just bought a Mercedes without telling me you just bought a Mercedes. And I'm like, you can't afford that car. I guarantee it. You're financing it. You're buying something because your sense of self-worth is dependent upon an asset that you don't even own. Most people don't even own their house. The bank owns their house. Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about buying land. Well, you buy land, congratulations. Now you're indebted to your local municipality to pay thousands and thousands of dollars so that whether you can support, fellatio curriculums in your public schools. The people don't need the government to enslave them because they do a great job themselves. They buy shit they can't afford with money that they don't have, so that way they can make it appear to other people as though they're actually worth something.
Well, they can also then come in at the end and say, look, I'm needy now. You need to bail me out. That should be the government's job, bailing me out. Well, whether it's student loans to go to take majors that nobody wants to employ you with, they basically say, we're going to bail you out everywhere you look. And COVID made it worse. I mean, as a teacher, these students got used to saying any excuse on earth would work, right? They'll give you higher grades, they'll do whatever, and they come into school, they don't attend worth beans, they don't do the work. That's hard to be a teacher nowadays.
Problem is we can't repossess useless degrees. That would be great if you could, but I would love to see the government actually go after the student loan industry as predatory lenders, the way they went after the payday loan industry back around 2005, 2006, when you had these payday loans that you'd borrow $1,000, and by the time everything was said and done, you'd spent $6,000 or $7,000 in interest. And I think that's a perfect example. You have if I want to go to the bank and borrow $100,000 to expand my business, which is profitable, by the way, I'm going to have to generate so much paperwork. It's going to be such an onerous process. It's almost not even worth doing it. But yet, if I want to go to a bank and get a loan, so that way I can get some useless degree in, African transgendered underwater basket weaving. Oh, here you go. Here's $100,000. You don't have a pathway to be able to pay it back. In fact, chances are you're never going to pay it back, but we're going to give it to you anyway. And then what do the colleges and universities do? They keep jacking their tuition rates up higher and higher and higher because they know nobody's ever going to say no to the people who are going to them to get loans to pay for these ever-increasing college rates. So why don't we see really the energy and the focus being put where it needs to be, which is going after things that genuinely hurt the American people, not create this false notion that somehow they're doing good?
Well, the problem is the federal government basically changed the industry and said, no more private student loans. Everything goes through the government now. They are the predatory lender. The government is not going to shut down things they're doing that they took it over to do. They did it so they could buy votes by saying, hey, you have a lot of debt, right? Let's not look at how wise your choice of where you go, that you do that, and you're having trouble making ends meet, right? It's, I'm going to bail you out. I'm going to forgive your loans. There's, they have a time payment plan that if you don't make much money, you don't have to pay much back. I know my son wishes he had been in that, but he is too moral and he's paying back his loans.
But then there's a person with actual sense of personal responsibility, but most people wouldn't do that. Most people, if they walked into your house and saw a $100 bill on your table, they would do a couple of looks before they picked it up and slipped it into their pocket. So, conscience and morality is something that is, I shouldn't say slowly, is rapidly disappearing from our society. So why would anybody? No, I'm entitled. I have a pulse and I walk upright, and God damn it, I'm owed something. So I want my money and I want my tuition and I want my handout. And as long as me, and if I can't get it, then I'm going to just put myself in self-imposed debt by buying things that I don't need with money I don't have.
Well, we make stupid choices. The problem is the government, compared to us, cares less about us than we do. It knows less about us than we do. When they take money out of our pockets, they spend it worse. We might spend it badly, but they spend it way worse. Think of how much the government spends trying to stop us from having voluntary relationships with one another. Minimum wage laws, all these regulations. They're spending money to keep us from doing what we want to do. That's not just not worth as much. It's worth a negative amount in society. Right? Counting government spending as if it generates the value that you spend is a really all-time stupid assumption.
I can't believe it's already top of the hour. We're getting the music. So, unfortunately, Gary, we've got to pull the plug on it. Gary Gallus, professor of economics at Pepperdine University, adjunct scholar at the von Mises Institute. You can check them out at Mises.org. That's Mises, Mises.org. Gary, thank you so much for jumping on the program. I appreciate it. I'm glad to know that at least there's one other person that's got a degree of economic common sense out there. Godspeed, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sorry about the mic problem.
That's quite all right. We'll get you back on again, though. We'll make up that lost time. I guarantee it. Okay. Thank you again. All right, we're going to take a very, very quick break. When Granite State Live continues, we're going to check in with, we're going to tease. I think we're going to tease next week's segment for sure. We're going to be talking about the, very, very quickly, the Conval decision with Daniel Richard. He's going to be calling in at the top of the hour. And then we'll also be checking in with Mandy Gunasekara. Going to be talking about the deep state striking back. Oh, there is nothing I enjoy more than a conversation about the deep state. We're going to have that right after this. Don't go away.
United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Acciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving Southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
It's actually pretty good. I got to be honest. Thank you for the cultural enrichment one. That was actually pretty good. All right, welcome back. Hour number 2 of Granite State live on this steamy first day of July 2025. Great to have you along on this Tuesday evening. I'm your host, Keith Hanson, the unapologetic contrarian conservative, never apologizing for my Christian faith, never, ever apologizing for my conservative views. I can't help it, folks. I was born this way. So my doctor considers it a pre-existing condition.
Speaking of pre-existing conditions, you got, blue-collar intellectual in the house, and I'm here to piss people off and, throw little jabs like, John Best, you intellectual neophyte. You couldn't bench press my jockstrap.
That's okay. Hey, we're dimwits, so that's okay. You're whatever. All right, 833-603-8255 if you would like to be a part of the program. Again, 833-603-8255. GraniteStateLive@gmail.com if you'd like to share your thoughts about the program, or if you have a show topic. We enjoy those as well, too. Actually, we did get one earlier today, so I did ask Steve over at Granite Rock to reach out and get a little bit more information on that. So we do get good tips from our viewers and our listeners, so we certainly do appreciate that. GraniteStateLive@gmail.com. All right, we teased this earlier in the show, the Conval decision coming out today, and I can't think of a better person to have a conversation about this, albeit briefly, because we're teasing right now. We're not getting into the meat of this. Daniel Richard joins us on the... have we got the sponsor for the show line yet? No, we don't. So we'll call it the Pugleys Construction phone line. There we go. There, we just bequeathed the phone line to Tom Murray. Hey, Daniel, you on the line?
I am. How are you gentlemen doing this evening?
Fantastic. Great to have you. I'm sure there isn't a person watching or listening right now who is in New Hampshire who doesn't know you and what you do. This the man who is the attorney without being an attorney, the constitutional scholar. I'll tell you, if there's anybody here who could opine on this, and especially the ramifications pursuant to what the state constitution has to say about this, it's you, Daniel. So what are we looking at right now?
Well, I've known about this for several years, and unfortunately, as you both know, the political climate was not ripe for pushing back on what's going on right now with these decisions out of the Supreme Court. And now we have a convergence of a lot of people, which is taxpayers, parents who are upset about what we're teaching our children in school, and lastly, seniors who are being priced out of their homes. And so The Article 38 of the state constitution, which was the last article in the Bill of Rights, tells us that we want to always have a frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles. So saying that, I'll take us right back to the year 1784 when the Protestant Reformation landed on the shores or had started here with the Plymouth Rock in 1620 and was in full-fledged effect in 1784 when New Hampshire finally adopted its current constitution that we know today. And within that body, we have to start at the beginning, and that is the rights of conscience. Article 4 of the Bill of Rights says the following: among the natural rights, some are in their very nature unalienable, because no equivalent can be given or received for them. Of this kind are the rights of conscience. That leads us to the next article, Article 5. Every individual has a natural and unalienable right to worship God according to the dictates of his own conscience and reason, and no subject shall be hurt, molested, or restrained in his person, liberty, or estate for worshiping God in the manner and season most agreeable to the dictates of his own conscience. There's that word again, conscience. Or for his religious profession, sentiments, or persuasion, provided he doeth not disturb the public peace or disturb others in their religious worship. Now, I lay the groundwork there because the next one that follows, we had a lot of hoopla in the last legislation about parental Bill of Rights. Well, I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but we the people already have parental rights. They're unalienable rights that come from God, our Creator, not from government. The legislature can't give us parental rights. A government big enough to give you rights has the authority to take them from you.
Amen.
So, as well-intended as that legislation was, it still didn't solve the problem because I'm about to prove my point. Again, back in the year 1784, there is a very important article, and for those of you who don't understand the Claremont decision, the Claremont decision was a decision in the 1997, I believe. Forgive me if I've got the date wrong. I've got a lot going on, but either way, the point is we got a really bad decision out of the state Supreme Court where the judge in the case used the word cherish. He said the word cherish means that there's a tax mandate. He reinterpreted more than 200 years of usage and custom and said somehow that word cherish can be converted into a tax mandate. Well, I know you gentlemen understand separation of powers. The judicial branch can't make law. And that's exactly what they did in the Claremont decision. And it flies in the face of this right, this Article 6 right that I'm about to get into here momentarily. And it's critical to understanding the paradigm because the judge in this case, the Supreme Court, also completely ignored the original text and the original meaning that the parents had the right to choose. If you have the right of conscience, don't you think that extends to your children?
It should.
Of course it does, right? Absolutely. So the following was said, and again, the Society of People in 1784, New Hampshire was made up fundamentally of all Protestants. Again, the Protestant Reformation was in full swing. And so you couldn't hold public office unless you were practicing Protestant. So that leads us to this following article, which reinforces that whole point. Quote, as morality and piety, rightly grounded on evangelical principles, will give the best and greatest security to government and will lay in the hearts of men the strongest obligation of due subjection. That's powerful right there. They understood something very simple, that morality, in order to have a peaceful society, a society that where we all get along, that morality has to be the linchpin. And currently, this is...
I think we lost Daniel there. All right, we were teasing with Daniel here, and I want to get him back on, but I also want to get to our next guest. So I'm going to say if he calls back, we'll try to get him towards the tail end of the show here. Daniel is going to be doing an extended segment about the Conval decision, and I believe Tom Murray is going to be in studio next week as well too. So I'm going to leave that as a teaser for right now. My next guest, I wanted to have her on because one of the interesting interesting things. Of course, we know that there was of course, the Democrats saying that we narrowly averted World War III with the bombing of Iran. And Special Envoy to the Middle East Steve Witkoff called for an investigation into leaked preliminary U.S. intelligence assessments, claiming that President Donald Trump's strikes on Iran did not destroy 3 targeted nuclear sites. So there is a movement right now in Washington, D.C. to leak information, to undermine the integrity of reports that are coming out, and I think, to be honest with you, to use President Trump's term, to generate fake news, to create confusion about what is and what is not real. Joining us now is Mandy Gunasakara. She's the author of Y'all Fired, Southern Bell's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. Mandy, great to have you on the program. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, good to be with y'all.
So I love it. Thank you for throwing that in there. Y'all, that's great. We need to do that up here in New Hampshire. But I tell you, the deep state is having some fun here with Donald Trump, and I think it's about time that Trump starts hitting back at these because, I mean, again, the more that you're seeing this concerted effort to try to undermine the information coming out of Washington, D.C., it's creating now this confusion. People don't know what's real. People don't know what's not real. It's the fake news. And then you also have situations where now you have the administration that is being directly undermined. This is in the case of CNN and MSNBC, encouraging people to publish where ICE happens to be, so that way their illegal immigrants and illegal aliens can avoid deportation. So, at what point does this stop?
I think it stops as soon as these intel leakers are found and held to account. And I believe that they will be. You have the FBI and the DOJ looking into this, and you also have to look at the media. The mainstream media, is so wanting for a story to undermine what President Trump and his team of cabinet-level experts have been doing. They've been achieving the America First agenda that the president laid out and is coming through on numerous promises delivered, including making sure we do not have a nuclear-armed Iran. And that is exactly what he has achieved. But the left-wing media, they can't stand it. They have very little to work with. And so one of the additional bigger issues is, of course, the criminal actions of the intel leaker, which they will be held to account. But then secondly, you have this mainstream media that has just been itching for a story and an opportunity to undermine the president's overwhelmingly successful outcomes. And so they're focusing in on a low intelligence leaked report put out there by someone unwilling to put their name on it because they shared it by illegal means. And so you have all of these problematic qualifiers if you are an actual journalistic institution that cared about basic ethics and integrity when it comes to sharing quote unquote facts. But it's coming from the same reporter that was behind the Russiagate hoax that pushed a lot of those talking points, as well as the 51 intelligence people who swore up and down that the Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, not actually from the president's son, that has all sorts of problematic evidence against the Biden corruption and their family relationships with that. So nonetheless, you obviously have the criminal act inside, but I think it will end as soon as this person is held to account, and they're going to have to make a big deal out of it. Otherwise, you're going to continue to see the deep state and people jump at any opportunity to share incomplete information. This is what the deep state does. They'll share incomplete information, not the whole big picture, with their friends in the left-wing media that want to make the president look bad.
I think one of the big things, Mandy, that I'm seeing is that the media has been in control of the narrative for so long. And I think this is really the change that you saw with Trump, and this is why the media didn't like him from the start, because he would go directly to the people. He would use, at the time it was Twitter, but he would go onto Twitter and he would address people directly, and so he bucked what was the norm up until that point of using the media as the mouthpiece. Now he's going directly to the people. They don't like that. They can't control the narrative, so now they're going to engage in ultimately, I would say it's this treasonous and seditious behavior of leaking information or putting decided falsehoods into the conversation. But here's my concern. When do we start seeing people actually doing the perp walk? Because I got to be honest with you, until we start seeing people do the perp walk, Pam Bondi comes out and says, well, we've got all this information about Epstein, for instance. Okay, well, it's amazing. Ghislaine Maxwell gets convicted of trafficking, but yet nobody is held accountable for being the customer. We want to see people locked up. We want to see people locked up who are leaking information, who are deliberately and intentionally putting falsehoods out there. We want to see people held accountable. And we're not. And that's what people are getting pissed off about, Mandy.
Yeah, I understand and I agree completely. The problem with these things is they do take time. When they do the perp walk, they want to make sure that not only they have the right person, but they're going to have the evidence to back that up. It's the same thing. We ran into this with the Biden corruption family and all the investigations coming from Capitol Hill. It took years for this information to come out, and then it was a pretty convoluted report that the media, the mainstream media, went out of their way to try to undermine and push to the back. And so this administration, like you said, the benefit is you have a president who has avenues to go directly to the people, as well as places like this, like the station we're on live right now, where you have a direct audience and you're willing to engage in what people really want to hear instead of repeating the left-wing Democrat-approved talking points that you see from mainstream media. The problem is they still have sway with people who just don't want President Trump to be successful or are suffering from lingering aspects of Trump derangement syndrome. It is a very real issue where they just can't see the good, even when it's right before them. A nuclear-free Iran is good for everyone, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a capitalist, or a socialist. You don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb, and that's what President Trump has done away with. But to your point, getting to who the leaker is and holding them to account, the president and his team understand this. They know what is on the line. And so I believe I was in D.C. last week talking to some of the folks who are part of the organizations working on this very issue. They're going to do it, but they're going to do it right for all of us. It takes time and it requires some degree of patience, but I understand the frustration. I too have that. As a recipient of weaponized DOJ/FBI back during the Biden administration, I want people to be held to account, but it's going to take time, and you have to have some faith in the system. I have a lot more faith in the system now with President Trump and his team at the helm than I did just less than a year ago.
Well, I mean, less than a year ago, it was the administration of the auto pen. We understand that, but is there enough time in 3.5 years to actually start rounding these people up and holding them accountable and actually having them see the inside of a correctional facility long enough to actually understand what this is, not just to be pardoned by the next administration if you have a Democrat in the White House or if you have a Democrat light Republican who is willing to go against the grain and pardon people who, they feel were unduly victimized and targeted by the Trump administration?
Well, I would say to the first part of your question, yes, 3.5 years is more than enough time to go after these people, the current leakers of the latest intel report, but then looking to the past, the people who abuse positions of significance and of consequence, whether it was in investigatory bodies or even regulatory bodies that abuse their positions of civil service to go after individual American citizens in the wrong way, like we saw with President Trump and a lot of the appointees that worked for him. There is plenty of time for those people to be rooted out, to be exposed, and to suffer the consequences of their actions. Now, to the latter point, that's always a potential. Whether or not they're going to try to pardon people who are in jail for leaking reports, that's going to be a little bit more difficult, just politically speaking, than they may want to try and pardon some of these illegal criminal aliens that President Trump is rightfully putting behind bars as well, or the people who are going after and trying to dox ICE agents who are putting their lives on the line to try and restore law and order to this country by protecting our border and getting rid of the illegal aliens that came over, criminal aliens that came over in large numbers during the Biden administration. You never really know how that may play out, and that is something that could happen. But in the meantime, President Trump is committed to restoring law and order, and that includes going after people who criminally leak intelligence information with the sole politicized purpose to try to undermine one of President Trump's most successful feats to date.
Former U.S. EPA Chief of Staff and author of Y'all Fired, A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp, Mandy Gunasakara, joins us on the video line. What would you say is the most egregious example to date of information that was leaked, and then what was the most dangerous in terms of national security, if they're not the same?
Well, I mean, certainly the what we're talking about right now, that certainly ranks up there. I think the doxing of personal information, maybe that doesn't necessarily go to the national security. The doxing of personal information of any of our folks who are working undercover or who are political appointees, you know, showing up to Supreme Court justices' homes and monitoring their children. There were lists that were put out that exposed not only where people lived, but who they were married to and who their children are. That type of information is extremely dangerous, not only to the personal safety of that political appointee, but also to the chilling effect it ultimately has on people who are going to be willing to serve in positions where we need folks to have courage and step up to the plate in order to really save this country and get out back on track. Now, luckily, there are a lot of people who have that courage. They're a part of the America First agenda and now permeate the halls of the executive office building and the White House and various agencies as appointees for President Trump. But nonetheless, I really think that that doxing effect, it's not just designed to go after that person, which is bad enough, but to have a chilling effect for anyone who is willing to try and work for someone like President Trump. You know, you're not just going to be dealing with the obstruction of the deep state, but you're going to have to deal with personal attacks and potentially having your safety and security of yourself as well as those that you love put on the line.
Well, I think they love that because that's plausible deniability for them. Oh, we're not threatening you. You know, we're just releasing information because, well, you know, the people have a right to know. But, I mean, I think the intention is certainly understood by people. You're putting information out. You're putting very sensitive information out, maybe not highly sensitive in the sense of national security, but you're putting personal information out there that serves as an invitation to people who are certainly unhinged, who would want to say, oh, here's an opportunity for me to have a direct impact on what's happening. You have people who are just absolutely addicted to the, to the endorphins and to the, just to the rush of being social justice warriors. And I think this is one of the reasons why you've seen attempts on President Trump's life. People are answering the call. Oh, there's a problem, and here I am in a position to be able to do something about it. I'm going to go and I'm going to go after ICE agents, or I'm going to go after family members of ICE agents, or I'm going to go after family members of Supreme Court justices who I disagree with because I'm going to influence literally history. And I think that that's a serious concern, and it needs to be treated with the severity that it actually represents as a threat.
And of course they are answering the call, because this is where we find ourselves right now, where, you know, when you constantly say that somebody is an existential threat to democracy and that somebody is Hitler, what is the next logical step for them to take but to treat the situation as they would as if actual Hitler was sitting in front of them? Of course, Donald Trump is the furthest thing from Hitler as you could possibly get. In no way does he have concentration camps or is he stifling free speech or any of that stuff. But, you know, the left has taken the position of stifling free speech and has taken the position that conservatives need to be put in, what do they call them? The cushy re-education camps, because, you know, nothing says I'm not a communist like doing communist shit.
That's right. Well, and you have one party that endorses that type of violent behavior. You saw this not only with them continuing to try and ascribe President Trump to Hitler, even after there were attempts on his life, but more recently with the Tesla bombings, the firebombing of Tesla, when Elon Musk was doing really great work with the Department of Government Efficiency. And the only thing he did there was he finally shined a light on the waste, fraud, and abuse that is rampant in this federal government. And he did it in a way that was quick and conveyed it in terms that the public could immediately understand was wrong. And then you had Democrat members of Congress encouraging that type of aggressive behavior. You also see it with people of the left who are embracing people like Mangione, who killed an executive of a company in cold blood, execution style, while crossing the street. There is one party in this country that aligns with groups that encourage this type of behavior because of baseline political disagreements, and that flies in the face of why our country was founded in the system that we have, where debate, non-violent debate, is a key source of us continuing to be a successful country. And thankfully, again, you have people like President Trump who are willing to stand up, be courageous, issue the fight, fight, fight call, and to push back. And people have the hope and strength to continue to pursue of the America First vision, despite the fact that they are being embraced by or pushed back by an organization, the Democrat Party and the socialist groups that are affiliated with them, that applaud a violent approach to disagreements.
The left has been calling for violence against anyone who opposes them for a long time now.
Exactly right. I mean, you saw this in COVID too. I remember all of the Democrat Congress people encouraging people to go after folks who were breaking the masking laws and actually going out and trying to live their lives. There's so many examples of it, but it's extremely problematic. Thankfully, those people are not in charge right now. We have people who understand the essence of debate and know how to achieve things like peace through strength, as we've seen with Iran, despite the fact that you have those that are trying to subvert this success by using and relying on their mainstream media allies to undermine the truth of what we're actually dealing with.
I'll tell you, the one thing, Mandy, that concerns me is, I'm seeing a lot of things that I like coming out of the Trump administration, but I realize that 3.5 years is a very, very short period of time. My concern is what happens during the next administration. Again, if it's a left-leaning Republican, a Republican light like a Mitt Romney or a Chris Christie, not that either one of them are ever going to see the inside of the Oval Office without a guest pass, but it just concerns me what we're setting ourselves up for, because the pendulum swings one way, it's always going to swing back again. So I think it certainly raises some interesting questions. Mandy Gunasakara, author of Y'all Fired: A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
All right.
Wonderful
Be well.
to be with y'all. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the socialists. They just keep it's like broadcast media is great. It's like every day is Christmas when it comes to these people. Now you've got Zoran Mamdani, who wants a crack at kind of showing some of the more left-leaning mayors of New York City where they went wrong and what a socialist can do when they're determined and they get another crack at it. We're going to be talking to Donald Wilkie, author of Freedom Revealed, A Simple, Elegant System, when Granite State Live continues. Don't go away.
United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Acciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving Southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best-looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Oh my God, what a whore. That girl stole my outfit.
What the hell are you talking about?
Not another teen movie. Great freaking spoof movie.
That is a great movie.
Yeah,
yes.
She had the naked girl walks into office. She goes, "Oh my God, what a whore! That girl stole my outfit." It's
yeah,
like,
that was.
She's butt naked.
How many films did that spoof?
Oh, dude, it got every single teenage movie.
Yeah.
I mean, 16 Candles. What was it?
10 Things I Hate About You. The big one was 10 Things I Hate About You.
Janie's got a gun.
Oh, that was
She's
a good
got
movie.
a gun. Get her.
That was a great movie. I completely forgot about that movie.
Oh, the Varsity Blues
I actually
moment
used to
was
have that
great.
on. I used to have that on DVD.
I still watch it to this day. Me and my wife absolutely love old school spoof movies.
Yeah.
Especially that whole The Varsity Blues. You got the perfect pass, and then the guy gets ripped in half in the end zone. And it was like, and there we go.
Walk it off, Marty. Walk it off. Oh, that's good stuff. All right, welcome back to Granite State Live on this Tuesday, the first day of July. 3 more days until Independence Day.
My son turns 14 on the 3rd.
Does he really?
Yep. He was almost a 4th of July baby. I was like, babe, you got to hurry up. You don't want his birthday overshadowed by the holiday.
Oh, well, at least he got, if he had 4th of July. I mean, I got Christmas. I mean, come on.
Well, 4th of July is great birthday when you're an adult because everybody's already partying. So it's like, hey,
why
come
not
over
for
to
a
my
kid?
house for a barbecue.
What kid wouldn't want fireworks for his birthday?
The problem is everybody's always busy for 4th of July. So be like, hey, come to my birthday party. No.
That's true.
I'm going to go up to Hampton Beach and watch them blow some shit up.
So, hey, don't get me started on Hampton Beach. The white trash Riviera of the North. That's right. It's like Fort Myers Beach. Oh boy, they just had another shooting over there, didn't they?
Yeah,
I guess it's like a daily occurrence over there.
Another illegal from Massachusetts.
Hampton Beach. Well, if they're not up here shooting people, they're up here doing 134 miles an hour on our highways. So, I don't know. It should be legal. If you see a Massachusetts plate, it should be legal just to do a pit maneuver on them. Just watch them roll in the median. Just up, should have stayed home. Speaking of staying home, how about New York liberals moving up here?
I'm all set with that. I'm all set. Keep that socialist shit in New York.
Well, it's interesting because this. So the mayoral candidate Zoran Memdani. I mean, it looks like might wind up having a socialist in there, right? Okay, so what's going to happen is this guy. He's going to wind up winning. Bottom line. And you're going to see a lot of people, especially and this is interesting, the Jewish population has a really, really nasty habit of voting for these people. And then you're going to wind up seeing this guy in office, and he's going to destroy the city like Bill de Blasio. And then you're going to have a mass exodus of people who don't quite understand that the way that you vote and the way that you live, they are directly connected. There is a synergy. How you vote determines what your quality of life happens to be.
I'm going to throw it out there because I did note almost every population in New York voted for Mamdani, the socialist, the out-Marxist that he is, except the black population. They voted overwhelmingly for Cuomo. And I'm not a fan of Cuomo, but different flavors of Baskin Robbins. I think Mamdani is like a shit flavor, and he might be pistachio, and I'm not a flavor of pistachio.
Well, I'm watching on the monitor here, and our next guest is chomping at the bit because I know he's got a lot to share on this topic. Donald Wilkie, author of Freedom Revealed, A Simple, Elegant System, a seasoned entrepreneur, and an expert in the intricate relationships between government, autonomy, and freedom. Oh, this is going to be a good conversation. Welcome to Granite State Live. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm just going to set this up because up here in the great state of New Hampshire, we experienced during COVID a mass exodus of New Yorkers, and they all came up here because we have no income tax, and aside from we've got some pretty high property taxes, but we've got no sales tax, we've got we've got no income tax, no sales tax,
no excise tax.
We don't have any Yingling, but that's okay. And so they all came up here because property values were low, so they could sell their shithole tenements down in the city, come up here and have a lot of money to pay cash and a little extra money to put in the bank. And to be honest with you, we kind of want to keep the New Yorkers in New York. You like New York so much, stay down there. First of all, does this guy stand a chance of actually winning this election? That's the first question.
Well, I know as much about it as you do, but reading everything I've read is he's on the Democrat ticket, and the Democrats always win, or typically win. So from what I've seen, I guess he's got a chance.
Okay, so here's the logical next question. Why? I mean, New York, when you think about New York, it is the seat, it is the hub of the economic system. It is the heart, then the heartbeat of America and the economy. And you think about capitalism, and you think about making it big, and in legitimate industry, not in in Hollywood. You go to California. If you want to make it in business, you go to New York. You have a New York business and a New York address, and you've made it. If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere.
Hell,
thank you, Frank Sinatra.
I just saw apparently 40% of the country's GDP comes through New York City.
Why do they keep voting Democrat? What is it about Democrats that are giving these people an actual return on their investment and not just something to bitch about?
I can explain this really easily, and it's so simple. You'll slap your forehead and say, "Why didn't I think of that?"
Okay.
My book, Freedom Revealed, has three fundamentals. The three fundamentals of how the world works, how nature works. They're competition, waste, and ease. Everything moves to ease. So your question about socialism, why are people attracted to socialism? Socialism promises an easy life. So the reason, the best analogy I have is when you go to a national park, maybe a state park too, but you always see that sign that says, "Do not feed the animals." The question is, why the sign? Well, because if you feed the animals, they'll stop feeding themselves. And what do we see with socialism over and over and over again? People think it's going to take care of them. They're going to get food, they're going to get housing, they're going to get warmth, and they're not going to have to work. It's a siren song. Now, I can go back and I can destroy socialism for you very simply. And I started my thinking by looking at nature and how nature works. And there's a statement in all the environmental books that says there is no waste in nature. Well, if there is no waste in nature, what is the mechanism? And freedom is a mechanical system. What is the mechanism that drives it out of nature? Well, the mechanism is competition. Competition drives waste out. So you have to look at competition and waste as connected, like a seesaw. Competition on one side, waste on the other. Competition goes up, waste goes down. Competition goes down, waste goes up. Okay, that's the fundamentals. They're pretty hard to understand, right? It's very, very, very simple. We apply that now to what two great systems humankind have developed. And we deal with these systems every day. It's like breathing air, we don't even realize it. There's a marketplace and government. Those are our two great systems. Nobody has really thought about it in terms of competition and waste, but when you think about it, the marketplace is a competitive system. The government is a non-competitive system. Okay? A non-competitive system cannot eliminate waste. So the age-old question or the age-old statement of every time socialism is tried, we get poverty. Well, I say, of course you get poverty because the government is a non-competitive system. Of course you're going to get poverty. Waste has to take over. Now, the other thing that I realized is that socialism is not an economic system. Socialism is a government system. Government runs the marketplace. And when the government runs the marketplace is distorted, and therefore you get poverty. So that's the fundamental, and that's really the heart and soul of the book. But I can give you even a little more personal background. I come from the formerly great city of Detroit. In 1986, Detroit forced me out of the city through government stupidity. And I looked at what these people were doing, the judges, the regulators, the people employed by the city, and I said, can't they see that they're forcing business out of Detroit? Can't they understand that? How could they be that stupid? And then I read a book by Diana West called America Betrayal, and it showed that there's a decades-long operation, communist, socialist, trying to take over the world. And then it dawned on me. These people weren't that stupid. They knew exactly what they were doing. 2013, Detroit declared bankruptcy. It's a dead city. It's not coming back. And what do we have today with New York? We have a socialist coming into New York, promising everything: food, cheap, lodging, cheap, shelter, no police, don't worry about things. And all they want to do, we're saying, how can they be so stupid to vote for these people? All these people want to do is drive the big businesses out. And what happens then? The people become dependent. And who are they dependent on? They're dependent on the government. And once the government has them, they got them for good. So I think Detroit was the big industrial marketplace of the country. It's gone. New York is the big financial centerpiece of the country. They have to try to get rid of that for their goal of taking over the country. That's
what better place for a person that hates capitalism to settle in and to sink their just bloodthirsty fangs into. I mean, again, it is the seat of capitalism. I would suggest it's the seat of capitalism. That maybe Chicago because of some of the mercantile exchanges, but this is crazy. This to me is absolute insanity. And when you and I'm not just throwing out hyperbole there. I mean, I want to get into his plan to build affordable housing because of how evil property owners and landlords are. We can get into that, but this just to me this is not going to end well. And it kind of makes me wonder when people are going to wake up and say, as long as somebody is giving to you, like you mentioned earlier, people want things easy. Okay, I will every time, 100 out of 100 times, if you tell me I'm going to give you an existence or you can go out and you can bust your ass and earn it, I am going to opt for the latter, not the former, because I know that no matter what you give me, it is never going to be what I can achieve through my own hard work, my own dedication, and my own perseverance. So you can keep your handouts. I will be self-sufficient. That way, I don't owe anybody. And at the end of the day, I can say it was because of me that I achieved what I have. What the hell is wrong with people that kept mentality is what resonates with them over their desire to build a better life for themselves because they earned it?
I have only one answer to that. Welfare. Look at welfare. I mean, President Johnson in the 60s thought that if we gave enough money out, we could actually end welfare forever. Poverty would disappear from this country. Well, we have more welfare now and more poverty now than we've ever had. People move to ease. It's a natural part of life. And your statement resonated with me that how could these people be this stupid? That's the exact same question I asked when Detroit was going under. The people like Mondami, I believe, know they're stupid. They know it's not going to work. They want it to not work. They want the thing to fail. Mm-hmm. All you need to do is drive the big businesses out. You drive the big businesses out of New York, they go where the grass is greener, and all of a sudden New York is like Detroit. And Detroit's never coming back. You can't believe that city. If you ever get around there, take it. Well, I wouldn't recommend you driving through Detroit.
I was just going to say, not without a belt-fed 50 caliber, BMG. Yeah. I would not want to go in there unless I was in a SWAT vehicle.
They've torn so many houses and so many factories down that the majority of the property in Detroit is vacant field. We have coyotes running around. It's amazing. You can't believe it.
And
but that was a purposeful thing.
And that's sad because I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, Detroit's little brother, and I watched the auto factories leave Detroit to go to Cleveland and then go to Dayton, and then eventually they all went to Mexico, and now they do their production down there, their manufacturing down there, and that was Motor City. That was the that was the quintessential beltway, the Midwest right there. It was everything we had to offer, and we destroyed it. And what I always found interesting about these socialists is the government has a monopoly on force, and every time the government gets involved, we had discussed it earlier, every time the government gets involved in any industry, it immediately seeks to force every other factor of competition out of the industry so that it can have a monopoly.
Well, Detroit was almost 3 million people in the late 60s, 2 million plus. It's down to 400,000 now. And those people are the poorest people of the poorest people. I mean, 80-90% of the people in Detroit are on welfare. They ruined that city terrifically. They did a terrific job. If that's your goal, Mamdami is your guy. This is what I believe. And, there's money. There's always money in politics, and there's always big money behind these programs. Yeah, we've tried socialism before. Yeah, we've done this before. We know it always fails, and yet they still bring it up, and yet people still buy into it. The reason, of course, is they promise ease. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make your life easy. We're going to buy your groceries. We're going to take care of your rent. Don't worry about it. And people buy into it. We have a necessary need, a big need for education. The people to understand how prosperity is created. Do you know that economists don't know how prosperity is created?
Oh,
it's really very simple.
I'm not surprised. And we opened up the show tonight talking about education, talk about here in New Hampshire with the budget, with the adequacy rates for educating public school kids. And, you know, we have I'm sitting right now next to a state rep who in his district, they have a 14%, Turn Brian's mic on, please. He's got a 14% how am I trying to word this here? Proficiency scores. 14%. So, you know, I mean, I guess I'm answering my own question here, which is how can people be so stupid? Oh, because they go to public schools that teach them that what's really important is how to give a hand job to their partner or put a condom on their same-sex partner, not how to actually go out and create the pathway to prosperity.
And here's the better part. Let them tell you exactly what was their solution for their horrible proficiency rating.
Oh yeah, you're gonna love this one. So the solution to fix the failing proficiency scores is by changing the testing, dumbing them down. You dumb down the testing, more kids pass.
Yeah, so ease.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it really is true. When you think about it, the more you think about it, there are no exceptions. People do it. I mean, it's just human nature. I saw a high school teacher, a black gal, talking about her school, and the metrics are entirely backwards. It's not whether you read or write. It's whether you graduate. That's the metric that the people in schools are looking at. And that's why she says, funding. Yeah, I just have to continually graduate my people. When I was in Detroit, people would come in looking for a job. Young kids, I mean, we were, entry-level jobs in my factory, and none of them could read or write. I'd give them out a employment application, and they'd say, "Can I take it home?" And the reason they wanted to take it home was because they couldn't read or write. They had to get someone who could read or write so they could fill it out for them. This is in Detroit in 1986. Well, it's happening all over the country now. Detroit was just first. Detroit, if you were someone trying to really destroy the country, Detroit was a huge success for you. And I think they're looking for a huge success in New York, too. It's not these people are stupid. They can't be that stupid. They know exactly what they're doing.
No,
it's us
they want a proletariat revolution. In order to get a proletariat revolution, you need to, one, get rid of all the staples of a society. You need to get rid of the education, because having bad education or no education at all breeds a lack of opportunity, and a lack of opportunity breeds piss poor decisions, and piss poor decisions breed more piss poor decisions, and that creates this endless cycle where you're constantly asking the government to step in and make up for your piss poor decisions and your lack of opportunity. And it's very easy to convince that generation and all of those people that, hey, if I'm coming with an easy handout because there's no opportunity out there for you, if you can convince them there's no opportunity and I have a handout, you're the opportunity. The problem is the government is an opportunity. The government is not a benefits package, or at least it shouldn't be.
It all turns down to government dependency.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the whole key to it. And if you get a population dependent on government, they're going to stay dependent. Mm-hmm. And it's just an astounding thing. Now, if you understood, and what we need to do in this country is educate the people, educate ourselves how prosperity is created. Everybody wants to live in a prosperous country. That's why people come to the United States. You know, you only get one chance at life. You want it as happy and as prosperous as it can be. The way to get prosperity is in the marketplace, where competition eliminates waste. When you eliminate waste, things get better, they get faster, they get easier, prices go down. The government's rule or job in a prosperous society is, number one, keeping the framework, keeping the atmosphere conducive for the marketplace to work. If we have no law, the marketplace can't work, which is what happened in Detroit. There was no law in Detroit. The marketplace couldn't work. If you have despotism, the marketplace can't work. It's distorted. You have to be somewhere in the middle between those two extremes. That's the rule. That's the role of government. And if we learn those rules, if we learn how government should operate and what makes prosperity, which is the marketplace, competition, eliminating waste, then we'll all vote the way we think sane, normal, rational people will vote. But as long as someone's promising ease, they're going to vote for ease without knowing the opposite.
See, there.
Right now, the vote is vote for us, and you're going to go into poverty. Well, they don't say that, but we should be able to say to them, if you vote for them, you will go into poverty, and here's why: the marketplace will be distorted; it can't work, and therefore you will get rich, and you go into.
I'm going to answer my own question here from before, and I'm going to say that, the problem is that especially with public schools, they have done away with anything that allows a student to develop critical thinking skills. There is no development of an analytical framework. So when you have a 20-something voter who's standing there listening to politician A and politician B, they can't tell the difference between the two. And you could have two people that were engaging in a very intelligent discussion or debate, but the voter is too stupid to even be able to compare and contrast either viewpoint, and they certainly don't have the framework or the foundation to understand basic economic principles. People don't know how money works, which is why the majority of people have no net worth and are dead broke. In fact, they're in debt. They're worth more dead than they are alive.
We've got a big job ahead of us, don't we? Which is the purpose of my book, educating people onto how the world really works. Freedom is a mechanical system. Nobody ever thinks of it that way. They all think of it as a philosophical system. Let's go back and see what Aristotle or Descartes or anyone like that said about it. But it's mechanical. It can be fixed. It can be taught. I don't know, all of you have hobbies of some sort, whatever. When you started them, you weren't very good. But as you worked on them, you got better. That's competition. You get better. And this is how competition in the marketplace works. I'm always amazed. We know how socialism was invented. We put that at Marx and Engels' feet. No one ever asked the question, who invented capitalism? Well, capitalism wasn't invented. It just happened. It's the natural development of the marketplace. And I have a big section in my book about how capitalism developed. There's an old saying, time is money. Well, the simple thing about capitalism is money is time. If you have money, you can do things faster. Mm-hmm. And that was how capitalism started. And our country, the United States, was on the forefront of doing that because we allowed the marketplace to work without suffocating government. And we became, in 50 years, the most prosperous country in the world, which had never, ever been heard of before. Europeans were astounded that they could come to America and see common working people who were happy and wealthier than some nobles in Europe.
That's one of the primary reasons why the Communist Manifesto and that concept didn't work over here, because with a capitalist system that you could have the bourgeois class rise up and they could, or the proletariat rise up, and they could create their own existence. That economic dichotomy didn't work here in the United States. Unfortunately, Donald, we're out of time, but I want to get you back on because I think this is an important conversation, and I think it extends far beyond just the context of New York City. So we're going to do it again if you're willing to do that.
Great.
All right. Yeah. Donald Wilkie, author of Freedom Revealed, A Simple, Elegant System. Thank you so much for being on the program tonight. We'll get you back on again soon. And that is going to do it for this Tuesday night's edition of Granite State Live. I want to thank all of our guests. We are just about flat out of time, so I've got to wrap this up really quickly. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thanks for all of your comments as well to granitestatelive@gmail.com if you have show suggestions or if you'd like to share your thoughts. granitestatelive@gmail.com. Until next week, folks, be nice. Civility does work. God bless everybody.